Write Night is a talk show with published authors, writers, and content creators discussing both the creative and technical sides of writing, as well as the industry surrounding it, from novels to screenplays to comics and more. And now, here's your host, author Travis I. Sivart.
Welcome to Write Night. Tonight's topic is, I feel like I should give the disclaimer first. We'll get to the disclaimer in a moment. Badass quotes. We're going to talk about that in many areas and ranges. And I guess it's a good time for the disclaimer. I want everybody to know it's an adult show with adult language, adult topics, and adult humor. We do try to keep this in particular a little bit cleaner so we can hit a broader audience, but we are adults and we're going to behave quite immaturely on occasion. Other than that, I want to let everybody in our live stream chat. That is our studio audience. We are recording the podcast, so we may not get to every comment, or we might get to them later where it fits in better. And for those of you listening to the podcast, we do have a live audience, so you will hear us interacting with them, and you'll hear this noise, which says, I want to read off some comments. So keep that in mind. Other than that, I'm Travis Sivart. The series that I'm working on now is actually Book 2 of the Silver and Smith Chronicles, where the world-weary bounty hunter Silver teams up with young idealistic Hank, Henrietta Smith, who is an archaeologist trying to make her way in the world, and they discover ancient treasures, bringing mysticism into a cyberpunk-type world set some 20, 30 years in the future. Okay, I think let's introduce Michael.
Sure. Cyberpunk. That's really cool.
Thank you.
My name is Michael Thompson, independent author and illustrator from Northern Virginia. I write all sorts of sci-fi fantasy stuff that plunges ordinary characters into extraordinary situations. One of them is World of the Orb, portal fantasy adventure. A couple of best friends sneak away from their group on a field trip to the Museum of Natural History, break the one rule that gets them plunged into an alternate world of monsters, myths, and magic.
Well done.
And sent on a harrowing treasure hunt to find Earth again. You can find these and this, along with my other books, on michaelthompsonbooks.com, MichaelThompson books.com.
Aaron.
And Aaron, what you got?
Hi. If you want to be extraordinary, you got to do extraordinary things.
Hey.
Master tradesman, former Marine, doctoral candidate, locksmith, jack of all trades. Been published in the Army Times, Army University Press, written persona non grata. Basically, I do it all. Specialization is for insects. That's a Robert Heinlein quote. What you got, Travis? What are we doing tonight?
I want to remind everybody that you can pick up my books at bit.ly/TravisBooks. That's bit.ly/TravisBooks. And Aaron's books at bit.ly/Aaron Kennedy. That's AARON Kennedy, like the previous president. Other than that, I want to remind everybody we've got our new Christmas merchandise out there. And you can find that by going to bit.ly/tavernmerch, as well as the standard silly t-shirts, coffee mugs, stickers, etc. to support the channel and show your support. Redundant, but there it is. Oh, that
Redundant. True.
For our chat, what are you guys reading? What's your creative project that you're working on? What's going on with you? Let us know about that. And don't forget to check out our other podcasts, such as Talk of the Tavern, which is known as Horribly Inappropriate, Terribly Amusing, and Stealing for Survival, which is our fantasy apocalyptic role-playing game that takes place in the same world as my Portal series. Now, tonight's topic, badass quotes. I have no idea where we're going with this. It's I assume this is going to be a little fun, a little crazy, probably going to touch on movies, books, things that we've written, because I know these guys have written some incredible quotes. I don't remember any of mine. Really, I don't. So how about we start with Aaron, who is rubbing his little paws together like a chubby praying mantis? Not that he's
Hey, I've
chubby.
lost 15 pounds this week.
Really?
Well,
Seriously?
yeah. The raw chicken and friggin' coffee diet will do that for you, sir.
Raw chicken.
No. Actually, I'm back on keto diet. I'm trying to trim down. I'm running a 218-mile virtual run. The Marine Corps is hosting this one. Again, if you want to be extraordinary, you got to do extraordinary things.
Perfect.
So I am looking at Michael's wall, and on my screen in the lower right-hand corner, I believe I see Ash, and Ash is the king of friggin' badass quotes.
Hail to the
Such
king, baby.
That's right, that's right, and we want to insert some of these quotes because he says some great one-liners, like "This is my boomstick, baby."
Good,
Uh,
bad. I'm the guy with the gun.
exactly. My thing is, whenever I watch a movie or I read a book, and I mentioned one, I believe, last show, like, hey, build a man a fire, he'll stay warm for a night. Set a man on fire, he'll stay warm for the rest of his life. Uh, Things like these. These are the things I take away. These are the things that make Aaron's brain work. I remember Ash because he's got these stupid quotes and they just sit with me. There are things that I remember from Star Wars. Okay, my wife's tagline for her jail email, okay,
Her job.
is I'm gonna
Jail.
huh?
Email. Her job. Her
Yes, her
employment.
job jail email. She's the HR manager for a regional jail, and she's got. I'm gonna friggin' turn to her real quick to make sure I get it right. Yeah, everything's good here. It's all fine. Everything's good. It's Han's quote when he's when he's in the jail section.
How are you?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. How are you? That quote. She's got Han's quote from there because it's a great takeaway line. Those kind of things are what I remember. The little pop culture references. They're stupid. They're fun. Who here can quote 80% of The Princess Bride? They're
Inconceivable!
badass quotes. Why are you smiling? Because I know something you don't know. And what is that? I'm not left-handed. I have to admit, you're better than I am. Then why are you smiling? Because I'm not left-handed either.
That's good.
By the way, I have loaded 8 new Princess Bride quotes into my soundboard that you guys can't hear them, but I will be playing them throughout the
Magic.
evening. Let me explain.
Let me explain. No,
Let
me sum up.
Or the one about using small words.
I'll explain, and I'll use small words that you'll be sure to understand, you warthog.
Let me summarize.
buffoon.
There we go. It's so yeah, we have there, and one of that I put up that I love. It's Vicini, and I'm gonna play it, then I'll say it.
I can't compete with you physically, and you're no match for my brain.
I can't compete with you physically, and you're no match for my brain. That's one I quite often use when streaming my writing, but not towards the viewers, but towards the characters in the book. Because I always, as much as we love a good battle scene, I do believe it's the more than just the physicality of a character that brings you through.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
So, I've got a few things here, and I don't want to cut Aaron. Okay, I'm going to cut Aaron. I'm sorry.
No. That was just my lead-in. Go for it.
And I'll turn it over to Michael here. But some things I want to look at is why do we love them, and why do we create them when we write? You know, what is the drive behind it? Are we creating a soundbite, or are we punching a point home with this thing? And the third thing I'm going to add, which I wanted to interrupt with this earlier, the king of badass quotes in movies, Arnold Schwarzenegger, all through the 80s. Dumbass
Oh,
quotes.
definitely.
Okay. I'm going to sit back now, give Michael the stage here, and go, Michael.
I like what Joe said here. The first badass quote that comes to his mind: "I'm here to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of gum." And I know that's from another movie. It was also said in the Duke Nukem game, and I actually have John St. John's autograph. The guy who voices Duke Nukem, he was the MC, I think you would call him, at Ring of Fire Con.
Nice.
And I got him to do a soundbite holding the orb from World of the Orb,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's holding it, he's tossing it around, he's saying, "It's time to realm hop and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of gum."
Nice.
It was cool. I almost had the he had his own personal he brought, I don't know if he brought it or if it was supplied, but he brought like tequila, and he was going around to all the vendors, and he was, you know, having a party on the go.
See,
And
I
they
get yelled at when I bring
thought that I
tequila.
was younger than I was, so they were like, "Don't give him any alcohol. He's 16." I'm like, "No, I'm not." So I almost did shots with Duke Nukem, and I'm not a big drinker, but to do shots with Duke Nukem, I might have. But the people there shut it down.
See, I'm not a tequila drinker, but in a situation like that, I would make an exception because
Yeah, for Duke Nukem, I was like, yeah, sure, why not? That's a story. But yeah, I think badass quotes as they emerge. I think lots of the quotes like emerge in my mind first, and then we find out like where they go in the story. And I think Aaron, you were talking about an Icarus Black quote that you have in your mind that you're finding you're gonna find a spot for or write your way toward that, right? Was that the
Governor one.
maybe, yeah.
I posted in chat was the and this is because I'm building not the villain but an antagonist. It's just kind of
Yeah,
setting the stage, and it's Governor. Make no mistake, the Federation has fallen. We are custodians of rubble. It is not a question of if, but when we cede our power back to this regime. So you must ask yourself whether you would like to do it with a pension or from the other side of an airlock.
That's great. That's great. And you know, it sounds like a what is it, like a more like technically minded, like Dirty Harry kind of quote. You know what I mean?
And I wanted to get somewhere between like a Grand Moff Tarkin,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted halfway between Grand Moff Tarkin and an Albus Dumbledore.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't want the character to be evil. I've kind of set him up. He's a con artist. His position is actually chief auditor. He's going in after this kind of evil empire has fallen, and he's telling him, "Hey, all you've got to do is fix your stuff before the real guys come in and just start lopping off heads.
Yeah.
I'm here to kind of help you fix things. Just put your cards on the table, and we can retire you or we can execute you. You figure it out."
Yeah. It's cool to have those lines that like crystallize who they are as a character, and for you as an author to sort of reflect on, you know, what they're saying, what they're withholding. I remember one of my villain lines from World of the Orb for Shamal, who's the big bad warlock of that book. He has some prisoners that he's speaking to, and one of the younger prisoners says to him, you know, your spirit is stained by cruelty, which is, and then he there's a description of his body, like as he rises to his full height, sounding like a tightening rope. He's kind of like a zombie. And he says that the term you're seeking is adaptability, the distinguisher of the strong, the driving component of the natural order. And then there's a beat as they take that in, and then he just says separate them. It's ooh, you know, it's so dark it gives you chills. Yeah, so it's interesting. You have these lines, and they either reveal something about the character, or if it comes later, it might embody a change. Could be a personal mantra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The personal mantra thing. I'm thinking of The Expanse here.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one character who is pretty much a psychopath. And he's one of the good guys, by the way. But he's attached himself to the group of good guys to be his moral compass. And one thing he does, and it's not quite a badass quote, but he likes to make nicknames for people. So he calls the Prime Minister of Earth, whose name is like Christian Avalasara, he calls her Chrissy. And she hates it. And she complains about it. And he calls the Martian Marine Gunny Bobby Draper, he calls her Babs, and he calls somebody else who was a criminal who he broke out of jail at some point in time, he calls her Peaches. And this is showing the side of him that is trying to be human, that is trying to be interactive and a part instead of naturally separating himself and living in seclusion. And it's a very telling thing when you have this guy that he doesn't get the social interactions. He doesn't, oh yeah, we won that battle. Yeah, you guys are all jumping it out. I'm like, yay? What's next? But this is a great way to define him trying to connect and be part of that community. And it's almost the reverse of a badass quote. It's almost like a pretty pony quote. But it's against his character's general mentality. And it gives him a different layer and a different light to be in.
Yeah.
So what's some of you? Go ahead, Michael.
Well, it's what that makes me think of is just creating like the style guide for the character's speech. The way they talk is very important. In Winslow, everyone has their verbal habits, and in Winslow Hoffner's Incredible Encounters in my Sea Monsters book, like Winslow generally refers to people by their last name. So, like in the first chapter, he says, "Didn't I tell you to call me Winslow?" And John's like, "No." He's like, "Oh well, call me Winslow. Mr. Hoffner's too formal." Guy to Chaplain, he himself, he calls almost everyone by their last name. But it's interesting who he chooses to call by their first name. Hank is just Hank. He'll call Millie by her first name. But yeah, and it's revealing, and as the author creating it, it's. You write it because you hear it in your head, and then you want to meta analyze it afterwards and be like, I wonder why he does this, and then you have your own.
It was a great
idea.
quote along those lines. Men in Black, the first Men in Black with Will Smith and Two-Face. Damn it, what's his name?
Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah. Where Will Smith says,
"No problem, sport."
Yeah. Don't call me sport, tiger, champ, slugger, any of that. I found you. I got skills. And Tommy Lee Jones says, Aaron, do you remember the rest of the quote so I don't screw it up?
He's like, no, it's like, no problem, kid. No, don't call me kid. Freaking blah, 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 blah. And he's like, no problem, sport.
But he says, as of right now, your skills mean dick. And it opens up the doors and it shows all the aliens across the airport-esque type floor in front of him. And he just turns and walks away. So
it's cool.
And he continues to call them those such nicknames throughout the whole production there. And that is another where somebody was trying to make a badass quote and somebody just shut him down with one word, one phrase.
Yeah. Or a person is smart. People are dumb, and you know it.
Well, that's been said a lot of times, in a lot of places. Usually me in Walmart. It's So what's some of your favorite badass quotes? Before I start just quoting Schwarzenegger for the next 20 minutes.
You feel
Eric,
lucky, punk?
That's a good one. Yeah. Do you feel lucky, punk? Which is what brought that to mind when you said you got to ask yourself one question with your character.
Mm-hmm.
That's what sort of triggered it for me.
I mean, shoot.
Well, of course, we have a ton from Princess Bride. From Star Wars, we even have ones that aren't really... They're the antithesis of badass. I've got a bad feeling about this. The odds of this succeeding are, from C-3PO...
Never quote me the odds.
Right.
Never tell me the odds.
It's
Don't
Joe
make
says,
me destroy you.
What about the first rule of Fight Club is... That's something
don't
we
talk
use
about
frequently.
Yeah, that's a good one.
There's also the opposite of that, where you got movies that are supposedly great, but you can't freaking quote them at all. Supposedly Avatar. You ever hear anybody quoting the movie Avatar?
No.
Nope.
A couple
Visually stunning movie.
Speaking of Avatar, we're on Pandora now.
Oh,
yes.
I wanted to mention that. Yeah, thank you for reminding me. Yeah, Right Night
Segue.
is now on Pandora, so for anybody that likes to follow the podcast side of things. Check us out on Pandora and many other places. A couple of quotes here from our viewers. Weirdwin says, badass quote is always a good way to add some conflict to dialogue because people remember the initial dislike of nicknames, referring back to what I was saying. And Steven Stuff says Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
No, yeah. Hand me my wallet. Which one is it? It's the one that says badass mother.
Mhm.
I think most of what Sam Jackson says is pretty quotable usually.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Hang on to your butts.
Which one
I'm
was that?
sick and tired of these on this plane.
Yeah.
No, we can't swear. I did give the thing, especially with the thing like badass quotes, we're going to have adult words in it. So,
Oh, I know, but I'm trying to be good.
well, we can use it on occasion when it fits best. It's my duty to please that booty. Joe, is that your personal quote or is that from a movie or a book?
It's actually that's actually up on top of my friggin' headboard.
Why is Joe quoting your headboard, Aaron?
I don't know. Friggin', I mean, it's on the internet. Must be true.
I've heard tell.
There are myths and legends and rumors.
Well, no. I mean, Michael's got
Ah.
all these posters behind him. I imagine there's a bunch of great ones behind there because they wouldn't be there if they weren't great. But I mean, from Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Okay, I got one. I just remembered one. My Iron Man poster. So the first Iron Man movie, I can quote all day, and I think my favorite one is when Obadiah was trying to get his scientists to make an arc reactor, and they're like, "It's the technology, it doesn't exist," and he says, "Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a bunch of scraps," and the scientist is like, "I'm sorry, I'm not Tony Stark." Great.
That's a
I
pretty
am
good
Iron Man.
impression, by the way. Yeah,
Thanks.
you kind of did a good job.
That's actually one of my favorite movie quotes of all time.
They didn't even have a script for that movie.
The desperation. Yes, it's so interesting. They made it as they went.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah.
they made the movie as they went. They didn't have. There was different. They didn't even know who the villain was going to be. As they started filming.
How scrappy, but man, that's some good editing because they put it together and it is tight.
It's brilliant, and it has some really good practical effects, which you didn't see a lot of later on. But just the little wires and like little parts on his arm when he's like first building the thing, and I love practical effects.
It's Joe says, "How can we forget? Say hello to my little friend."
Yeah, that's a good one.
And Weirdwin says, "Quote: A true warrior would have asked what the red button does." Okay, can we pass that over to my D&D group? Because they pushed a red button last week. It's of course, one person pressed a red button. Everybody else was like, don't do that. Hey, hold on. Let's stop right here and say hello to Dropsome. Thank you for that subscription in the middle of Right Night. Appreciate that. Here's to you, man. And thank you for
Dropsome.
everybody else who is chatting. You're all subscribers, and I appreciate all of you. Thank you very much. There's my favorite quote. She just got home.
That's what she said.
See, there's a quote from Andrea. Andrea says,
That's what she said.
"That's what she said." It's always great when I use that quote on her. She's like, "That's right, I did say it."
We constantly in my friend group quote Bonesaw from the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, which was Randy Savage's character. And so anytime there was a period of time in college whenever anyone accidentally said the word 3, then we would all be like, "Ooh, 3 minutes." Which is when Spider-Man is in when Spider-Man is first getting started and he's in the pit to try and get money for a car to impress Mary Jane. He has to last 3 minutes in the pit with Bonesaw.
Thank you.
I got you.
Couldn't remember when he was in there. But now I do.
Yeah.
Steve
3 minutes
says,
of playtime.
when you need
Oh,
to
yeah.
shoot, don't talk. And Joe, yes, it can. Joe says, do you know Xena Warrior or Xena Warrior Princess? Can Xena's war cry be considered a badass quote? Sure, and if you can do that, I'll be impressed.
Lucy Lawless right there.
There we go. Here's a great quote from a movie. It might be before some folks' time. When the customers get mean, you be nice. When the customers throw a drink in your face, you be nice. When the customers
God.
yell at you and swear, you be nice. You just be nice until it's time to not be nice. And that's a paraphrasing of a quote from Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse.
Before Tu Wong Fu became a thing.
It makes me...
I believe they are sequels, actually.
I could go with that. Maybe we should do an episode where we just choose a character and we just do character voices the whole time. My problem is I'm going to either have to do like Yogi Bear, Herbert the Pervert, or Yosemite Sam and Foghorn Leghorn. One of the four.
I'll be Bonesaw.
You could be Obadiah. What was his last name? Stain?
Obadiah Stane.
That sounds like something you don't want in your underwear.
You know, it's been so long since the first Avengers film, but there was a really good quote with the Hulk when he transforms and it's revealed that he has it under control. That's my secret. I'm always angry. It's so good, and he delivered it really well too, because it's like, you know, a little bit of like a little bit of sadness almost. It's like because that's when the Hulk was really, you know, a monster that he was like keeping contained.
Right.
You know, I'm always angry, and then and I was like, oh, that is such a good moment.
I thought that tied in so well to the final scene in the Incredible Hulk movie.
Yeah, it really did.
You know, where he had his blood pressure monitor on, and he's purposely pushing it.
Yes.
Where instead of trying to control it and keep it in, he's like, how can I trigger this? And also his quote, not that, well, it's kind of a badass quote. He's like, you know, I put a gun in my mouth and pulled the trigger and woke up as him spitting out the bullet or something along those lines. And I'm like,
and the other guy spat it out. Yeah.
That's a good quote right there. Joe says, yeah, I know. It's
I like it.
Because we all, I think I got the visualization of when you're that far gone that you don't know what to do and you're ready to end it all. And we all, I got the mental picture of how fast a bullet moves and how fast his body transformed to stop that. And then, of course, I then, as the movie is rolling forward, I'm picturing, what did the Hulk do once he spat out that bullet? What did Banner wake up to the next morning?
What some of the stuff that I really like is when you say the quote, you're instantly brought to that scene.
Yes.
Like when you go, "Hey, Mr. Stark," and little things like that, and you're brought to the Central Park scene where freaking Spidey's holding, what is it? Not Obsidian Call, but the other freaking the big guy, and he's pounding on Stark. And you just got Spidey sitting there going, "You need a hand?"
What about I don't want to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
A couple comments from Joe here. What about Harry? Did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire? And he says,
Yeah.
You know, a show that has a lot of great quotes? BoJack Horseman. Here's one of my favorites. And by the way, I've never watched that show, but I like the quote that I'm hearing. When you look at someone through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags.
That show does have a lot of great stuff. I believe that's Will Arnett, and he freaking does an outstanding job on it.
He also did Lego Batman. He was Lego Batman.
Yes.
And did a great job there. Darkness. Blackness. Parents are dead.
Well, he was in freaking Arrested Development. That was the first place I was introduced to him at, and he does a great job there as Job.
Didn't he also do voice on Simpsons or no? He's done voices.
Yeah, Oh, he's done voices before.
Yeah. Okay, Steve's got
Guy-
one right here. Die Hard.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
Oh,
they,
yeah.
They changed the quote from "Yippee ki motherfucker" to "Yippee ki Kimosabi." He says it didn't work and still doesn't and can never be unseen.
Was that the TV edit that they did that for,
Yeah,
or
for
was
the
that
UK.
an actual?
TV in the UK?
Guys, Breaking Bad.
Okay.
There's a ton. I am the one who knocks. Is probably the first one you think of. I really like the one where where Hank, his brother-in-law, spoilers, but his brother-in-law like sort of figures things out, and they have a fight in the garage, and then Walt, Hank says to him that I don't even know who you are anymore, and then Walt is looking all like broken and stuff. He's like, if that's true, if you don't know who I am, then it would seem that the best course of action would be to tread lightly.
See, I've never actually seen Breaking Bad. I thought of Break Point as soon as you said that. So I was thinking Keanu Reeves, who's also got a lot of great quotes from Speed to friggin', which is
John Wick.
well, no, I haven't seen John Wick either, but Speed's got friggin' shoot the victim or shoot the hostage. To friggin' The Matrix, there is no spoon.
Whoa.
Whoa.
I know Kung Fu.
I know Kung Fu.
Right. Bill and Ted. Dude.
Excellent.
Excellent. Be excellent to each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. So let's shift this away from all the quotes that we love, because this will just be a whole show of us quoting other things. Let's talk about creating these quotes. Because I find if I have to try to make these quotes, they feel trite and contrived and fall short in some way. On the other hand, usually it's right after I lay them down. When I go back to do the edit, I'm like, oh, wow, that was good. I like what I put down there.
Yeah.
And this is something we mentioned in a previous episode about constructing it wasn't the perfect sentence. How was that phrased, Michael?
Yeah. Crafting the perfect sentence. Yeah.
There we go. It's and a badass quote is that, and it doesn't necessarily, usually a badass quote in our head comes from a character. But other times it's not. Sometimes it is the narrator or in the description. It's one key phrase within a larger picture that just stands out.
I had a great one. In Winslow too, which I don't want to reveal yet because it's not out yet. But that feeling is spectacular.
Weirdwind says one of my favorite lines in a story is, "It smelled like Cambridge." Which I don't know the quote, I don't know the book, but yeah, when you hear "it smelled like Cambridge," you do get an image, almost an olfactory image, as your mind goes, what's that mean? And starts dropping little drips of sensation and sensory perception into your mind of what Cambridge would smell like to you. You know, maybe ivy, maybe old books, maybe panicked college students all blended together, the waft of coffee, the smell of the library and all those books, the ozone of laptops in the modern era, in a previous era not so much. You know where else has some great quotes? Dead Poet Society.
I haven't seen it, but I know the quote, so you know it's good.
It's definitely worth watching. Same with Good Will Hunting. And they're kind of in the same bracket in my head. Captain, My Captain, which is actually a quote from a famous poem. Joe says, I read something in Consider This by Chuck Palahniuk that might be relevant to the idea of creating quotes. He says that the job of...
Author of Fight Club, for those not familiar.
Thank you. He says, the job of a creative person is to recognize and express things for others. The best writers seem to read our minds, and they know exactly what we've never been able to put into words. You don't
Very well.
Here's a badass quote from my history, not from a book, but it was one day, I guess I was 13, walking down the street with a young lady. And this is one of those things, it was a turning point in my life as somebody said something to me. And we're walking down the street, and I said, your voice is, because I was talking about her voice, and your voice is like, I can't describe it. She's like, Travis, you can describe anything. And then I said, your voice is like a pink fluffy cloud. And that's all I remember. I don't remember where we were going. I kind of remember the street we were on, oddly enough. But I don't remember what she looks like. I don't remember her name. I don't remember what hair color or clothes she had on. But I remember that. And that was something...
And you remember her voice?
No.
What it made you feel like?
I just remember that one sentence. That's all I remember of this young lady.
That is such a great author story, Travis.
It was...
It's like a perfect story for like a panel, you know?
Yeah, and that's the panel. Your voice is like a pink fluffy cloud. Come join us. What? Okay, Weird One says, that's the combination for my luggage. I'm surrounded.
Mel Brooks was great at quotable quotes.
Definitely, especially in silent movie. Hold on, let me play the cricket sound.
We became a silent podcast for a second.
Don't worry, we'll fix it in post.
We'll fix it in post.
Joe is throwing shade or compliments, one of the two. Your voice is so sweet, like cotton candy. If you ever read me a novel, I'd get diabetes and love you. I'll see what I can do, Joe.
That's like a pickup line.
It is. I'm a little swooning right now. What are you gonna say there, Michael?
The opening line of the book is really important to me. It should be grabbing. It should capture like the themes of the whole novel, crystallized into that opening. And like for Winslow, it's Winslow's opening line, which came to me before I knew who Winslow was and what the book was going to be. And it was, have you ever stared straight into the eyes of death and scoffed? And I told you guys that story where I wrote that down, left it in a document until I knew what it was. But
it's a good line.
Yeah, the opening line is really important. I can remember the opening line of every book, and I treat it similarly important at the beginning of other chapters or sections. You know, something that immediately like grabs you and pulls you in.
So, Michael, you tend to pull lines out of nowhere and put them away for later, as you just described.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I try to figure out what they're for and who's saying them. I remember the opening of World of the Orb was originally going to start in chapter 1. It didn't have a prologue before.
Mm-hmm.
It was originally going to be Marvin just getting hit in the back of the head with the wad of paper on the school bus, and then we sort of like hover near him. And I had written it like that, but I had this line that came to my mind when I was half asleep, and it was all the world is elements in their righteousness and depravity. And I knew who was saying it at the time. It was a character that I will at that point wouldn't have written for maybe years, but I rolled over, scribbled it down. I might even still have it. I might even still have the page. I think it's up here somewhere. I keep the page like in my little cubby hole on my whatever you call this thing. But I wrote that down and saved it for later, and I felt this shows up in the middle of the book when Marvin meets that character. But then I was in high school and I had all my homework spread out on the coffee table, and I wasn't doing it. I should have been, but I was zoning out. I was exhausted, and I was one with the leather of the couch. I was totally adhered, and I was like, and then that line played in my head again. All the world is elements in their righteousness and depravity. water with its life and its bitter cold, weather with its breaths and its fury, land with its foundation and its quakes, fire with its warmth and its destruction, the light that guides the spirit. I was like, oh shit! And then I jumped up because it all started playing in my head, and then I ran upstairs. I never run that fast. And I wrote it, and it was like my favorite thing I had ever written. And it was called "The Master and His Student" was the name of the prologue, and I just put that right at the top, right at the beginning of the book, because it encapsulated everything that the book was about, all of the themes. It was all unified right there. It was beautiful.
Makes you want to read books slower so you can soak it in instead of devouring them quickly and moving through them.
Yeah, pacing and rhythm is important in lines too, for that reason.
It is.
You know, choosing the right words that have the right amount of syllables. You know,
it's true. It's true. Okay, so what about you, Aaron? When writing these quotes, where do you pull them from? Do you make them before and place a scene around them? Do you realize it afterwards like I do? Or do you go, I'm going to make a great line here and write some good shit?
So, keeping in mind that friggin' Persona non grata was written without the primary narrator saying a word.
Right.
So we have Heart. Heart speaks. And really, it's a two-person play where one person doesn't speak. So I've got a couple other characters that have supporting roles, but Heart's the only one that talks throughout the entire book.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And he's mostly his stuff, I wouldn't say it's necessarily quotable. He's got some great lines, but Eri isn't quoted. So the way I've got him kind of phrasing stuff, it's not dialogue. So there's not a whole lot of great quotes and things that appear. I'm doing something different with Icarus Black. I've flipped everything on its head. As of right now, Val is going to be my narrator, and
Cool.
Icarus Black is taking on the role that that Hart had.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing all of that dialogue in spoken form. So we're getting her quotes, and then we'll get all the other supporting characters' quotes as well. One of the things that I'm going to see, and this is going to take place in probably book 5, is we'll get another mentor type figure, a guy named Jordan Nasir. And I have set it up as the aftermath of a heist. And what I want to happen is basically you're going to have Val go, this is setting the stage for the scene. Icarus is basically, they're stuck as the bagman trying to get something out of a vault, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, they're pinned down. They're trying to escape. And Val goes, be right back. At which point, Icarus is going, what do you mean you'll be right back? You're a ship. Where are you going to go? Right. So that is the onus of the scene. That is the quote. Where are you going to go? You can multitask. So you've got this Icarus just kind of yelling at Val. And then we've got the dialogue that's going to take place between Jordan and her. And I want that because Jordan's going to be kind of the straight man to Icarus. And Icarus has never been a big emotional type. You've always had friggin' Val be more friggin' upbeat, positive. Because I've built Val as kind of, when we start off, Icarus starts off 10-year-old girl. Val is not much older, but kind of a 10, 11-year-old boy in a ship's body. They're adolescents.
Yeah.
Val likes comic books. Because he's right. He's one of those, he collects them. Why? Because he's a 10-year-old boy. He likes the pictures. He's just one of those, what's he do with them? Nothing. He just likes them. But as we've aged up, he's gotten there. But he's becoming more, they each become more mature as the novels go on. But Jordan's a much older figure
Right.
in here, so they're getting the relationships are changing. But the be right back thing disappears as Val's got to dedicate more processing power to get him to her, but he can't dedicate time to talk to her to let her know what's going on. So I
Nice.
thought that would be an interesting scene to take place.
It's cool how you think about processing power in terms of like it humanizes the ship, but it's also like it's very ingrained in the fact that these are circuits and stuff, and it's a robotic sort of logic.
Well, and Icarus going, the hell are you talking about? You're not going anywhere. You're still right here.
yeah.
So she's yelling into the void, knowing that he can hear her, but he just can't respond.
Yeah, and calling out those inconsistencies, having your characters call those out, that's such a good moment, because that's so real, and having your characters react naturally, especially like as you're writing it. I think that's a true thing. It's like assessing as they assess the situation with the gloss of their personality. You get fun quotes like that.
Well, she's in what she believes actual danger.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to fix the problem, and then you've got this other one coming in for a rescue.
Within dialogue, is there like a nickname form of Icarus? Is there like a
She uses Ike.
Ike? Yeah. That's what popped into my mind too. Like I was like, how do you truncate Icarus? Yeah, I think Ike would be. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Jordan refers to her as Black by her last name.
Mhm.
Friggin', but she introduces herself to Ike at the beginning of the stuff, so she goes by Ike.
Yeah.
When Jordan is introduced, he refers to her as Black and calls her that throughout the series. And then towards the end, she gains her own call sign.
Nice. Cool.
So what I'm hearing here, and correct me if I'm overreaching here.
No.
A good badass quote, when we try to write it, we never try to write it. It's a happy accident. It's a moment
absolutely.
of inspiration. It's in retrospect going, wow, that, and maybe we clean it up and polish it a little. But trying to write this sort of thing, that quotable line that lasts forever, isn't something we do. It just, either it's there or it's not when we're in our mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very good.
I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on that note, okay, we all like Futurama.
Yeah.
Great show. We've seen friggin' Disenchanted on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, same writers, same creators. I think and I've mentioned this to Travis in the past, Disenchanted is basically Futurama in a fantasy setting. The problem that it suffers from is that it hasn't been edited down.
Mm-hmm.
It's still 30 minutes instead of 22 minutes. They haven't trimmed off all the fat. They haven't taken off all the 7.5 jokes and just left it with the 9s. So it doesn't feel as funny. With these quotable quotes, you lose stuff by not editing. So we're not really.
Makes me wonder how long Princess Bride was before they cut it down. Because that is.
Because I think the runtime on Princess Bride, it's only like 120, 130 minutes.
Yeah. I think it's closer to hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes, but I could be wrong.
I'll look it up right now.
And we're going to wrap this up in a moment.
138.
Okay.
Makes me think of catchphrases as well, because like if something's repeated enough, then it becomes quotable. It may not be quotable if it's alone. Yeah, the good news, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the callbacks and the repeat gags.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a bad feeling about this is in that area.
There you go.
Okay, let's wrap this up here. I want to thank everybody for joining us in chat or on podcast. As you guys showing up makes all the difference here. If you do have any comments, birthday wishes, thoughts on episodes, etc., writenightshow@gmail.com is where you send that. That's WRITENIGHT show@gmail.com. And thank you for supporting the show, as well as all the other podcasts, Stealing for Survival and Talk of the Tavern. Make sure you check them out. Thank you for everybody here who subscribe, such as drops them during this show, as well as everybody who threw bits, subscribed so you could be here and chat, picked up some merchandise, hosted, rated, support us on Patreon or our PayPal monthly subscription. We're going to head out here. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time on Right Night.
See you next time.
Thank you for joining author Travis I. Sivart and the other writers, content creators, and all around amazing people for our discussion here on Right Night. Join us again soon, and until you do, make sure you create with passion, enjoy the journey, and remember, every night can be right night.